Welcome to the 2026 NFL preview of the Cleveland Browns. It starts off with 3 things we like about the Cleveland Browns, followed by 3 things we don't like. Then we break down the schedule, and at the end of the video, we give our prediction of what the Cleveland Browns will do in 2026. Let's start off with the first thing we like about the Cleveland Browns. The first thing we like about the Cleveland Browns is their defense. You have the 5th overall pick, Mason Graham, from last year. He has all the tools to be a stud. You also have third-year player Mike Hall out of Ohio State. He's been battling injuries, but he's extremely talented. You got the potential to have 2 absolute studs. And not just defensive tackles. You also get Jared Verse over in that trade from the Rams. He's only 25. He's an ascending player. He's gotten better every single year he's been in the NFL. For my money, he was Defensive Rookie of the Year, but I thought he was the best linebacker in football. You got Carson Schlesinger. When ESPN rated their linebackers, the top 10 linebackers of the NFL, they rated Schlesinger at 3. Now, Fred Warner was number 1, but he missed more than half the season. For my money, I thought Schlesinger was the best middle linebacker in football, but it's hard to get those accolades when you're a 4-win team. In the secondary, you got Grant Delpit, never been to a Pro Bowl, but he plays like a Pro Bowler, got a big contract this offseason to stay in Cleveland. And you also have Denzel Ward, who's been to a couple Pro Bowls. So you got all sorts of studs there in the secondary, and this correlates hand in hand with the second thing we like about the Cleveland Browns, and that is their draft. So the last 2 years, the Browns have had pretty good drafts. I thought this year was exceptional. For the secondary, they got one of my biggest draft crushes, Emmanuel McNeill-Warren. Most draft big boards had him as a first-round prospect, the top 20 prospect, and the Browns get him later in the second round. It's just a matter of time before he becomes a starter. But the thing is, the defense, I'm not concerned about with the Browns. The defense is going to be good. I'm more concerned about the offense, 31st in scoring, 31st ranked in passing yards. So they double dip on receivers. They get Casey Conception, a really good player, a guy that you get the ball in his hands. He can make big things happen. You can use him on punt and kick returns, an explosive athlete. And then you get Denzel Boston. Now he's 6'4", about 210. He's more of a power forward, red zone target. I actually had Boston rated higher than Conception because I see a guy who reminds me a lot of Ted McMillan and Drake London, that 6'4", 210 frame, bounce, body control, hands. I think he's just going to be an absolute stud, but these 2 guys together are really going to improve this offense. And then they also drafted 2 tight ends in later rounds, and Joe Royer, the 5th round pick out of Cincinnati, same college as Travis Kelce, is going to make this team apparently. But the thing is, this draft all kicks off with the left tackle Spencer Fano, and that leads us to the third thing we like about the Browns, and that is their offensive line acquisitions during this offseason. Now, the Browns' O-line was bad, partly because of the play and partly, maybe mostly, due to injury. So the Browns did a complete overhaul on the offensive line. They traded for Titus Howard. He'll be the starting right tackle. They acquired Zion Johnson, Elton Jenkins in free agency, new starting guard and center. And then they used the before-mentioned 9th overall pick on Spencer Fano, who was right tackle. He's going to switch over to the left side, but he's going to be a starting left tackle. A lot of people thought maybe the best offensive lineman in the draft. We'll have to wait and see what happened. Now, when I talk about things I don't like, I am going to talk about the offensive line, but what they did this offseason is they saw a problem, they addressed it, and I give the Browns a lot of credit for that. So just to recap, the 3 things we like about the Browns is we like the defense. It's best defense in the AFC North. We like their draft, and we like the offensive line acquisitions. Now, 3 things about the Browns we don't like. The first thing we don't like about the Browns is the quarterback situation. Now, I started making this video when it was a quarterback battle, but now the decided starter is going to be Deshaun Watson. We knew all along it was going to be Deshaun Watson. If nothing else, it's easier to start with Watson, go to Shedeur Sanders, than start with Shedeur Sanders and then go to Watson. It'd be a lot easier and better to go this way. Plus, I think Watson has the higher upside. But bottom line is you have a first-time offensive coordinator coming in with a brand new system, and you have a quarterback battle more than halfway through the preseason. That's never a good sign, but hopefully for the Browns it works out. The second thing we don't like about the Browns is the offensive line uncertainty. Now, we love that the Browns address the offensive line, but to sit here and say that the Browns are set offensive line is furthest thing from the truth. The truth is that 3 of the starters that they acquired, 2 through free agency, 1 through a trade, came from teams that all had questionable offensive line situations during the year. So hopefully this works out, but to sit here and say that you're set, that's furthest thing from the truth. Now, Spencer Fano, most people thought that he would play inside. Now he's going to be the starting left tackle for the Browns, and they really don't have a backup plan. If things don't work, it's sink or swim here for Spencer Fano. I remember last year people questioned Will Campbell. Should he play guard or should he play tackle? Then he had the really bad Super Bowl. I blame the injury, not the arm length, but a lot of people thought that he has to move inside the guard. Well, Fano's arms are over 2.5 inches shorter than Will Campbell's, and the Browns don't have a backup plan, so hopefully it works out. But if it doesn't, the Browns are in a lot of trouble. And the third thing we don't like about the Cleveland Browns is the simple fact that they are the Cleveland Browns. The organization has been bad for a long time. Universally speaking, the Cleveland Browns have been the worst run franchise in the NFL for a very long time. Take example, the last time they went to the playoffs, Alex Van Pelt was the offensive coordinator a couple years ago when Deshaun Watson went down and they traded for Flacco, and he ended up taking the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs. You fire him, and then the next 2 years you're 32nd and 31st in scoring. Now, I'm not saying Alex Van Pelt firing caused all the problems the Cleveland Browns have had the last couple of years, but it's a microcosm of how the Browns organization is. Everything from the Deshaun Watson trade to the revolving head coaches to the wrong personnel decisions, bad management. It's all from the top down to the bottom. Everything the Cleveland Browns have done for the last 20 plus years has probably been the worst run franchise you could have. Everything that they've done has been absolutely terrible. So to sit here and say that you have confidence in anything the Browns organization is going to do, I don't, but maybe things can change. So let's just recap the 3 things we don't like about the Cleveland Browns. We don't like the quarterback situation. Deshaun Watson was finally named the starter. The offensive line uncertainty, and that this has been the worst run franchise for the last 20 plus years in the NFL. Now, let's take a look at the Cleveland Browns schedule. So the first thing I do when I look at a schedule is I look at the bye week, and I see a week 11 bye. And for most teams, I would prefer a later bye. I think for the Browns, a early season bye might be better. But the one thing that stands out about the Browns bye week is that week 10 against Houston, you have a home game. Then week 11's your bye. Then 12, 13, and 14 are all home games, and they're home games later in the season. So you're playing the Raiders, the Bengals, and the Falcons. Well, the Falcons and the Raiders are indoor teams in warm climates, so you play them later in the season. That's a big advantage. And then you follow that up by going to the Giants, a very winnable game. So if you can withstand the early season onslaught, because 6 of the first 9 games are on the road, so that's going to be very difficult. But if you can hover around 500 into the bye, you're in really good shape. Now, you get a home game against Carolina, that's winnable. At the Jets is very winnable. At Tennessee, at Pittsburgh and New Orleans, you may be able to win Tennessee and New Orleans. I just mentioned 4 games that are very winnable. If you can be 4-6 and go into the bye week, you're in good shape because you can very easily win Raiders, Atlanta, Giants, Indianapolis at home, week 17, very possibly a winnable game. You play Cincinnati late in the year. Problem with Cincinnati's Burrow staying healthy. Maybe Burrow's injured. If that's the case, you could easily sweep that series. And I just mentioned every single game after the bye with the exception of at Baltimore as a possible win. So if you're a Browns fan, all you're hoping for is that early season, 6 out of those 9 games, they're road games. But if you can hover around 500, you got a chance for the playoffs. Now, let's take a look at the DTF official official win total prediction for the Cleveland Browns. So the DTF official win total prediction for the Cleveland Browns is between 8 and 11 wins. And I'm giving you a broad range just because I'm not exactly sure how they'll fare at the beginning of the season, but I think towards the end of the season, this team could be dominant. This is a great defense, and I think that there's a very good chance. By the way, if they get to 11 wins, they're going to win the AFC North. 11 wins will get them the AFC North. Now, I have some really good sports betting tips here. Now, if you go to DraftKings, 5.5 wins is at -125, but 6.5, you can adjust the win totals through the DraftKings site. Over 6.5 wins is plus 144. Now, I'm using Station Casino here in Vegas. To win the AFC North is plus 2,200. And that's a massive number. Of course, 100 wins you 2,200. And for them to make the playoffs, just Cleveland Browns to make the playoffs on Station is plus 600. And I think that they very well could be a wild card team. If you got some discretionary income, you want a good long shot, take the Cleveland Browns to win the AFC North. There's always a first to worst team. And what we like is that the defense is going to be fantastic. This is going to be a top 10 defense. There's so much talent. Todd Monken, the former Ravens offensive coordinator, I think it's going to work. I just got a hunch. I like Todd Monken. He's been a head coach before, just not in the NFL. It's going to work. It may not be this year, like I said, 8 to 11, but we're really thinking that the Browns are going to be a team with a winning record. The offense has weapons, and the defense is just going to be fantastic. So let me know what you think the Cleveland Browns are going to do in 2026, and make sure you check out all the DTF predictions. We're going to do our best to do all 32 teams, even though we're running late. We're going to do our best to do all 32 teams. So I hope to see you back, hopefully very soon.